Hello, I'm Sebastian Ortiz, Vice President of Engineering for Latin America for MentorMate.
And I'm Denny Royal, Chief Design Officer for MentorMate.
This video is about how do businesses effectively take advantage of artificial intelligence. Throughout the last year, people throughout the world have been waking up to the possibilities of using artificial intelligence in their personal life, in their businesses, but businesses have yet to realize the value of this technology for their own good, for the good of their clients and their collaborators. And it's really unclear how to take advantage of it. So should people and should businesses think about their business problems? Should they think about the technology itself? And more importantly, should they have to go through this problem solving by themselves?
Definitely shouldn't go through it by themselves. And I'm going to lean on the side of not technology first. And at MentorMate, when we think about those things, we very much think about it from that power of three standpoint that so well, which is, what's the right, without the right components of the right strategy, the right design with a capital D and the right engineering with a capital D, we're gonna kind of miss on that. And when we unpack that a little bit more, that strategy is not just the business strategy. That's a huge component of it. But what's the strategy around, what's the true purpose of the thing that we're trying to make, or how we're going to use AI if we're going to implement something like that, making sure that there's value for that end user, value for the business user. So it kind of goes back to, we talk about that vignette a lot of times of desirability, feasibility, viability. What makes sense for the user? What do they need? What does the business need from a viability standpoint? What does the technology need from a feasibility standpoint? And there's tension in all of that. And if we don't get those right and don't kind of pull that through with that lens of that power of three that we use, then we're not going to get to the trust factor. And if people don't trust it, they're not going to use it. There's all sorts of doomsday articles out there already on kind of don't trust where this is headed. And from our perspective, we're taking that very consciously and thinking about how we build in the right ethics, how we approach and make sure that there is value, that there is purpose, and that there is trust on that end user part and on the business's part.
So start with value and with a problem that needs to be solved.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on how do we create that trust and how do we realize that value?
Yeah, and realizing the value, I'll start there because that's kind of the more upstream part of it. To realize value, we've got to really understand what the right problem is that we're trying to solve. So let's not just take AI and try to plop it into a bunch of things, right? Let's make sure that, I'm getting ready to do another talk around, you'll hear me say a lot of times, just because we can doesn't mean we should. And our new owners, Tato, say there is a no in technology sometimes. So we've got to be cognizant of that. So when we go to look for value, we need to look for what's the right problem statement to begin with and making sure that we're in the right slot. Oftentimes, you said, how are we guiding people through that?
Yes.
Oftentimes, they're coming in with the wrong problem. And unpacking that and going to the field and doing the right kind of research, both inside the business and outside the business with the true endpoint users and understanding what's happening on the far side of that screen, that's where we're going to find kind of what people have of value and what the problem statement is to solve. Once we've got that problem statement, then we can start to work on it from a strategic and a design standpoint of what's the right way to solve said problem. Right, and that we travel together to do that with the design team, the strategists, the BAs, and the technical architects to really start to define what we think the solution for that is, and then it all rolls into engineering to figure out the right way to build said solution.
What was interesting about your comments is that you said sometimes people come with the wrong problem. Mm-hmm. That's not necessarily a bad start because the process that you described is you come with the wrong problem, but there is some motivation underneath. So even if you come with the wrong problem, if you work with a team that's capable mm-hmm. of figuring out the real problem behind the problem you're posing, then you can end up finding that real problem and then ultimately building a solution about it.
Yeah, so having customers that have that readiness for change, that want to lean in and want to do that work differently, and understand that maybe they don't have the right problem statement. We know roughly 70% of the large-scale enterprise technology efforts that fail for one particular reason: ill-conceived problem definition. So they're chasing the wrong thing to begin with. So if we get that figured out, that's automatically going to start really pointing us to the right value proposition, be it internal, external, whether it's B2B, B2C, wherever that's going to be sitting. If we get that right problem statement, you're going to start to see unmet needs, which then in turn describe value for that endpoint user.
So it's basically a dialogue, right? And the kind of partnership that you really need to do this is not a vendor, a client relationship where you just drop a proposal and the proposal is built. What you need is a real partnership with someone that can create that dialogue around the business problems and the solutions.
Yeah, and these are often extraordinarily long-term relationships, right? This is stuff that's not solved in an MVP. It's not solved in a go fast and break things sort of manner. It's solved in being very deliberate and evidence-based and how you're thinking about that. Not only the evidence-based from the users, which is obviously where my passion is, that I represent that desirability piece of it, but also from the business side. What is the viability of it? What's gonna make it go? And doing the hard work internally with those business partners to understand that, and understanding the tensions between that desirability, feasibility, and viability. There's a feedback loop in there in that system that we're working with all the time to make sure we're guiding it in the right way and targeting value for all parties involved.
Would you say that realizing the value of this new technology requires a mindset of not getting a quick and dirty, low-hanging solution in 3 months or in 4 months, but really thinking about experimenting and having a long-term commitment to its possibilities and aligning those possibilities with your clients, your collaborators? Is that the time frame that we are looking here, and the kind of commitment to understanding and realizing this value?
Absolutely, especially, you started off by saying that we're at this point in time where we're just realizing this technology. So when I think about it, it's a toddler. It's wobbling around and it doesn't know what it's doing yet. So that's the inflection point that we're at. We're at the very beginning of this. So anything you're doing, I think you're going to have a super iterative mindset around how you're doing that and continue to iterate on it. But run those experiments. There's a lot of stuff that we can do today with it that we're starting to look at, but I wouldn't think that it's going to be the end-all be-all solution right out of the chute right now. It's just not. It's way too early. It's way too nascent.
Now, one thing I see with this technology and the time we're in right now is you talk about being iterative, trying and experimenting. But if I know you well enough, you're not saying this kind of blind experimentation, just throwing things at the wall and see what sticks. And this is particularly dangerous when you have technology that's very new and very powerful. Yeah. So how do you make this iterative process a process that's more thoughtful, a process that realizes value, but it's not just a blind trial and error with a lot of risk associated to it?
I mean, it's very rooted in our enterprise design thinking methodology and the way that we think about that we want to, again, find those right problems, find the right solutions, make bets, but make them based on evidence and where we think the thing is headed and solving the right problem. Again, I'm not going to do something just because I can, doesn't mean I should, right? I'm not going to run around with the AI hammer and think that everything is an AI problem right now. Those things have to be proven out, and it's shifting our world quite a bit in the way that we think about it from a design standpoint. When we're doing research and when we're thinking about all of this stuff, suddenly designers also need to be systems thinkers, because we have less control over the end product than we've ever had before. When we start to think about, the machines are going to do this, we're going to put the guardrails around it. We're going to put the guardrails around those interactions and help guide the way that it should. We also have to know more about data as designers than we ever have before too, because what are the feedback loops that are going to give a positive experience that's going to build that trust? Because trust is, again, it's reliability plus delight. If the system becomes reliable, I'm going to start to gain more trust in it, versus where we're at right now with hallucinations and false positives and those sort of things. There's a little less trust with some of the products that are out there today.
So you talked about systems thinking, and designers needs to have a systems thinking. I'll risk saying that it's not only designers. Everybody involved in the team working in this project has to have systems thinking. Absolutely. This is not the kind of problem that you solve by thinking just as an engineer, just as a designer, just as a business analyst, just as a tester. And testers in this case when you refer to the problem of hallucinations, those are basically bugs, right? So quality engineering is going to play a very important part in all of this process. But I think that the most important part of what I'm hearing here and the effectively tackling these problems is everybody involved in this kind of new project that has enormous potentials. There are challenges, and the best way to deal with them is systems thinking across the whole team.
And doing it together, which is why we're very much shifting how we work. And you hear us talk a lot about traveling together and killing the handoff. That we really don't want those things happening anymore, and that we do need those different lenses in there, looking at the systems together, looking at the ecosystems together. But we've all got different lenses. You know, like I said, I represent that lens of desirability. Our BAs and our business strategists represent that viability, and our technical architects and our technologists represent that feasibility piece. And again, there's tension there with all of that. And we all need to look at the systems with those lenses, because it gets down to really specific requirements now too. What are the user requirements? So desirability. What are the technical requirements? That feasibility. What are the business requirements? That viability piece. Versus just saying requirements out loud and everybody kind of thinking that they know which requirements we're all talking about when we're all thinking different things in our heads. So we've been putting a lot of time and effort into making that work differently than we have in the past. Training up together, training how to do research together, training how to do playbacks together in a kind of a new way that is already being fruitful with us, with our customers.
So when trying to realize the value of this technology, not only businesses shouldn't travel together, but a whole team needs to act as a unit to tackle these problems and realize the value of this technology.
Absolutely. I saw a really good article the other day that's like, stop talking about hiring data scientists. It's way more than just data scientists, right? Like our roles as designers, as BAs, all those roles are really needed. Again, we can do all sorts of things with data, but if we don't know the true value that we're going to provide to that end user, then it's pointless, right? So we have to make sure that we're targeting the right things, traveling together, and figuring out kind of, again, what that problem is and how to solve it, and if the technology is applicable to said problem too.
Well, I think we can figure that out together.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for listening to this video, and we will continue these conversations about how to realize the value of artificial intelligence. Thank you, Denny.
Thank you.